Welcome, everyone, to Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. Joining me, as always, my winger rookie, Squid 5. Squid, a week ago, we said if the Leafs could win 5 of 6 the rest of the year, all would be good in Leafs land. Well, don't look now, but they've just reeled off another 4 in a row since.
Yeah, they've been playing pretty good hockey, and I think the biggest thing is that Jack Campbell is playing outstanding. But you know what? They're overall their game has really gotten a lot better since their start.
That's for sure. Now, before we get into the team specifics, it was nice to see a fellow Down Easterner of yours honored before the game last night, of course, referring to Dion Phaneuf.
Yeah, that was good. That was pretty cool. Him and his wife and his daughter out on the ice and dropping the puck and announcing his retirement. I guess. Well, I mean, he literally was retired anyway,
Yeah.
but officially retiring it, and in Toronto where he was the captain for quite some time. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And I got to play golf with him in PEI. I was down there for a Special Olympics thing that he does every year down there. And we played a round of golf. Then we had a dinner, and I got to meet him and Alicia at the dinner, and it was great. It was he was fabulous. We had a good time on the golf course. Had a few laughs, and it was fun.
Well, I can tell you, he and Alicia attended one of our early anti-bullying events that Debbie and I hosted with Brian Burke. And you were there that night with you and Lindsay came in from Niagara Falls, generously giving your time. They couldn't have been more accommodating, though. I mean, not only did they travel back to Toronto from PEI, but it was also on their own dime. And not a lot of people would do that, believe me. And Deb and Alicia got along famous, so I know Deb, so that's pretty tough not to get along with her. Yeah. But Dion was just asking question after question about the room and all those things surrounding it. And they were the last ones to leave. And they would live right around the corner from us. But still, he took a rough beating at times. But if anyone saw this side of him, as you and I have had the pleasure of seeing you a little bit more than I have, they changed your mind about this guy in a real hurry. And you could see the admiration from some of the players last night as they went around the room before the game, giving them their allocates to him.
Yeah, and but it's Toronto, Mike, and that's the way it is. If you're, and of course, especially during his time and currently, because everybody knows what the players are making. And if they're not performing the way that people expect them to perform for the money, they're all over them. They don't. Unfortunately, like I said before, you had to have thick skin if you got to play in a place like Toronto and probably Montreal as well. And the sad part is they don't look at you as a person who might have a wife and kids and a life. They look at you as, oh, he's making $9 million and he's not doing anything. So.
And he's ruining my life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Well, let's get into that a little bit. They're close to the 20-game mark, 17 to be precise. Their identity as a team is slowly rounding into form, starting with last night's game. Your thoughts so far for the first 17 or so?
Overall, consistency, and I think they're getting a little bit more of that. I like the fact that they're winning those low-scoring, very close games, one-goal games, and essentially last night was a one-goal game until that third line, who I thought were fantastic last night, got that second one to put them up 2-0, and then of course the empty net goal. So that is my biggest thing. Is I like the way they're winning those low-scoring games. They're not winning 6-4, 6-5. Like they were last year. They're doing it a little bit differently and getting the job done. And, that is important when you get down into the later stages of the season and then into the playoffs, because that's pretty much how all the games go at that point.
Well, as you're saying, what I liked about last night was they controlled most of the game but could only muster one goal. However, when the ice tilted in Nashville's favor, they bent slightly but didn't break. That wouldn't have been the case the last couple of years. Late goal, Blues in overtime. I mean, how many times do we see that one play out? I know it's still early, but winning these now, along with developing solid game habits, become crucial tools when it gets deeper into the season, as you just touched on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's of the utmost importance that they learn how to win those games, and they've shown recently that they know how to do that. And there's the odd game where they may allow 3 or 4 goals, but this is a team that can go out and score 5 or 6 or 7 and win those games. So, but I like the fact that they're winning those low-scoring, very close games. A lot of
Well,
that has to do with their goaltending, obviously.
well, yeah, that, and we'll get into that in a second. But do the Leafs finally have? And you touched on it just a second ago. Have that coveted third line with Kemp, Engvall, and Cachet? Again, a small sample size, but it must be encouraging for the coaching staff to see that.
Well, I mean, if I was on the coaching staff, I'd be ecstatic because, and like you say, it's a small sample size, Mike, but at the same time, those guys work their tails off. They're in there.
Yep.
They're chasing down pucks. They're hitting. And yeah, they haven't scored a ton of goals. That line, they were kind of just put together recently, but they're doing a great job in their own zone, blocking shots, doing that sort of thing. And last night they came up with a big goal that pretty much put the game out of reach.
Well, again, the tenacity they're bringing, if they can continue that, it's a game changer for the team all around. Now, consider this. Ilya Mikheyev will be ready around New Year, maybe. He's, got the pins come out of his wrist, I saw the other day or so. Kyle Clifford claimed off waivers yesterday. He's going to start with the Marlies. But again, he's waiting in the holding tank to come and play and making a little over $1 million a year. They're not bringing him to play for the Marlies. Josh Ozang is scoring at a noticeable clip with 6 goals in 10 games. Alex Steeves has got 5 goals in 6 games. Kirill Semenov is currently the 13th forward. Point I'm trying to make here is the competition for playing time is starting to percolate.
Well, it certainly is, and there's a few guys in that lineup that better look in the mirror because their jobs might be.
Yeah.
Their job, they may not have a job in another 10 or 15 games if they keep playing the way they are. And there's not many of them, but there's a few.
Well, that brings us to the shaky play some of the current roster. Nick Ritchie, who seems to be a bit of a target, has been given more rope than a mountain climber. But I'd suggest if his ticket wasn't $2.5 million, he'd be sitting. Played okay last night, but that dumb penalty in the second period earned him the role of grocery stick for the rest of the period. And that's not going to favor well when the coaches start looking at game film.
No, it won't. And, I mean, it makes you think, how much time does he have before the coaching staff gets to the point where they say, okay, like, I can't play this guy. But then what are you going to do with him? He's going to be a hard piece to move. Maybe you just waive him, and if he clears waivers, he goes to the Marlies, and then his 2.5 doesn't count on the cap, and then you can do something else. But yeah, he's having a rough go, and it's too bad because he's a big body that can has good hands. He has good skills out there, but his feet are a little bit slow, and I think that's what's kind of holding them back a little bit.
Well, Wayne Simmons is another one. He's starting to look a little bit like the Joe Thornton last year. Now, he did come to the aid of Jason Spezza last night, which was a good thing to do. And speaking of 19, he's looked a little sluggish the last couple of outings. He'll be given some room to fall down because of the leadership he brings to the room. I would suggest, and this is where it's going to get tricky, with a speedier, skilled winger. He's got Bunting on one side, who's another one we can talk about. Better results could emerge, and that probably puts Simmons vulnerable at this point, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't know what the coaches are thinking. I mean, he does bring a little bit of experience to the team and that sort of thing, but he's out there. He's not really accomplishing a whole lot right now, unfortunately, and. When you get to that point where that goes on and on and on a little bit further, then obviously, the coaches have to sit down and start thinking about, do we keep playing this guy, or do we bring someone else in that's a little younger that, is going to go out and play a little bit harder. So, and get some things done, maybe get some points, score some goals. but play a good defensive role and energy type guys. Like Kyle Clifford is a perfect example of a guy who could come up and fill in that role very, very easily.
Well, the problem with the Simmons is, I mean, the effort is there, but he's chasing the game and he's chasing the play more, is what I'm trying to say. And he's not even chipping in any goals. So you can't afford to have this, especially with the team lacking in that secondary scoring right now, which brings us to Bunting, who looks good at times. He's very hungry, but that four-letter word that for that type of player in the league is consistency, which you touched on earlier. He needs to find that balance. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately for him, that can only come with ice time. And with this Atlantic division so tight, that's not really an option.
Well, I mean, he got pushed down to the fourth line, and
yep.
You know, I think that could change though after Richie. Mm-hmm. You know, depends on, you know, he didn't look that great playing on the top line last night, and again that bad penalty that, you know, could have cost him. It didn't, but it could have very easily. And you know, you could see Bunting back up there on that, you know, top unit. He was playing pretty good on that top unit. At least he's able to skate a little bit, get in on the forecheck and make things happen. So who knows? I mean, you know, that again, like you said, it's only 17 games in. There's a lot of track left in this race, and they're going to have to make some decisions.
Well, let's come to another decision here you have to make in the goal, in the barrel. We've got Joseph Woll played well enough to win his first game. But as we said many, many times, you got to let these kids play when you're bringing them in. He should get another shot this weekend with back-to-back on the schedule. Eric Kallgren has played well for the Marlies. We know what Hutchinson can do. Mrazek is due back, but he is, let's just put it quite frankly, he's unreliable. Because I mean, he goes out, you know if he's coming back. So for safety measures, you're going to have a net there if that Mrazek experiment starts to fail again. So you got to let Woll play and even get Kallgren a couple shots too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's something that you know, they have to figure out, and they gotta see if one or two of these guys can play in the National Hockey League and perform well enough to win hockey games. And if that's not going to happen, and Mrazek goes down for another few months when he comes back, well, then, you know, you're in a little bit of a trouble. So give the kid a few games and here and there, and let's see what he can do. And if he plays well, then, you know, okay, you know, we got Campbell, who's playing extremely well right now. We got this guy who we know can play. But if you don't know if he can play, then you're in a bit of a bind, because you can't play Campbell every single game. Although I don't know why he couldn't play 55, 60 games or more personally. But again, you still have to have somebody on the bench that is capable of going out and winning a hockey game for you.
Well, as we just mentioned this a couple seconds ago, I did anyway, was the Atlantic Division, again, is so tight that the points are so valuable. You can't have on-the-job experience or gaining experience on the job. But in this case, you got to roll the dice a little bit and let these kids play. And as you pointed out, we got to see what they have in net. And if they're not good enough, then you're going to have to make changes at some point. And that brings us to the D. Here's a perfect example with rotation going on so far. Seems to be working, moving guys in and out of the lineup and up and down. You know somebody's going down at some point. You know it'll happen. It's just the nature of the game. So the transition, moving someone into the lineup, is less strenuous. So that part, I like what they're doing. And so far, the results have been pretty good.
They have been, actually. I've really liked the way Sandin has played. You know, bringing Hall back in, he's been effective. Even Dermott at times has been, you know, pretty effective out there. And, you know, the defense have been playing pretty decent as of late. And obviously that's why they're winning hockey games, because there was a time where they were getting knocked off pucks. We talked about that. They were getting, you know, beat wide, that sort of thing, and bad things were happening. But recently they've kind of hunkered down a little bit, and those guys have played pretty good.
Well, if we could ever get them to pop a few, they would be the completed cycle. That's the only thing we're missing, really. But other than that, everything seems to be going according to plan. So get a few goals, boys, and all will be well in Leafland again. Well, Squid.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's your favorite time of the show with the quote of the week. Today we'll focus on the Leafs winning streak. Now, to be clear, because we're superstitious, this is someone else speaking, not us. We're just repeating what somebody else said, okay? So, hockey guys, remember that. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Losers focus on winners. Winners focus on winning.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. You know what, and I got to think, Mike, that right now the feeling in that room is really, really good.
Yep.
They're winning hockey games, and like I said, the way they're winning these games, they score the goal in the first period, and then they hang on. They get a big goal from the third line, and then they get that empty netter, and they win 3-0. And can we say that about the last 3-4 years? Probably not on a regular basis. There's some nights where that would happen, but for the most part, those low scoring games where they're kept off the score sheet, they tended to lose those games, and now they're winning them, and I like that. I think that is one of the good signs that I'm taking right now, thinking this team is capable of winning those low scoring close games.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the last few years have been river hockey, and the last shot on goal wins. And, and on to the Leafs side, they've won more than they've lost from that standpoint until it really counted. So if that quote wasn't inspirational enough for you, when the streak does come down, and they will lose at some point, so we have to remember this also.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're going to lose. They're going to lose once, maybe a month or twice before the year's out. But if that isn't inspiring enough, here's an oldie but a goodie from Yogi Berra. So we're going deep here to really keep this going.
Ooh, yeah, real deep.
And just remember this one: you wouldn't have won if we'd beaten you.
Oh, well, that was a Yogiism right there for sure, no question.
So can you see John Tavares going up to the other team's captain when the Leafs do lose a game in the next fall and saying that to him as they're going off the ice, or said that in his presser after? That's so.
Well, that would be quite funny if he did, because, but I don't know if Johnny would know those quotes from way back in Yogi Berra's days. I don't believe he would.
Well, they're all taping the show. They'll be watching it later, so they can pick up. They can, boys, you can use it.
They probably are going to listen, and they're probably going to take that, and somebody will use it at some point.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Join us next week, same time, same place. Don't forget this week's podcast, Squid and the Ultimate Leaf Fan, drops Friday at 6 p.m., featuring soon-to-be ECHL Hall of Famer Brett Mariotti, who captained your 97 Kelly Cup team, and you're smiling with pride with him playing under you, and you made him captain.
Yeah, and he was my captain the whole time, except for my first year there, and then he was captain for about 5 years after I left, and won 2 Kelly Cups. He was a great leader, real good, consistent player in both ends of the rink, and I couldn't have had a better captain than Brett.
Well, yeah, and he's going in January. So all folks, so tune in and have a listen on Friday. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the games coming up this week, and we'll talk to you next week.